I'm really curious about the idea of luck because people always say, well, you got to get lucky to make it in music. And I used to really fight against that idea. But then after time, I realized like I have been lucky. And I think there's a reason why I was lucky. But I would like you to speak about luck. Like, how has luck played into your career?
Yeah, so I mean, the very semantic based question about how you define luck, I guess you have to be there. You know, if you're not there, then things don't happen, or you're not part of them because you weren't there. Choosing what you do with your time and what places you put yourself is part of the luck design that someone chooses. They're making an infinite number of little choices about where to be at any moment. Should I hang around the studio for 3 days, or should I go on tour with the band, or should I stay at home and be on the phone all the time? And the aggregate of all of those things are a bunch of more likely situations that certain outcomes will happen and less likely situations where outcomes will happen. So the more that there can be, I think, an understanding of what you want to happen, you can make little micro decisions that end up making you seem pretty lucky that all of a sudden there's all these circumstances that are working out. You are putting yourself in those positions. You're, as they say, creating that luck.
It's like for me personally, almost everything I've actually planned has failed, or meaning it didn't reach the goal I was shooting for. But the biggest things that happened in my career were things that happened along the way to this failed plan. Like I happened to meet somebody, or I took somebody to dinner. I just decided to work on a song just because I thought it was cool, and kind of following more of an instinctual thing, and also taking some wacky chances, which you've been part of some of those. Like didn't necessarily make sense, but it's like, well, let me try it. And I went ahead and tried some of these things, and it changed my life. So I think there's a certain amount of, quote unquote, faith, I guess, in it. But whether you're doing it unconsciously or consciously, it's basically it's a numbers game sort of thing, too, about giving yourself the opportunity, because nothing's going to, like you said, you have to be there. If you're just at home, ain't nothing going to happen. I like the idea of luck design. That's a good word right there. But I think it's about not being careful and kind of not thinking about it too much sometimes. Has there been a particular failure in your career, something that could be deemed a failure that didn't work out, that really affected your career positively?
My framing of failure is really about understanding limits. And I think limits are impossible to understand until you reach them. And if you reach them perfectly, then you got right to the edge of the limit and you get to look over beautifully. But more oftentimes, if you're pushing for the limit, you're going to go too far, and you try something, you go down a path, and you're just going to keep, if you have an instinct for it, you're going to keep trying until it snaps, until you hit a limit. And that limit, the sort of white flag that you, where you're like, we call it failure, but it's also clear understanding of where the limit is, where most people have no idea where their limits are. They work way inside of their limits. They're super conservative. They don't like the feeling of going over the edge. Therefore, they're going to stay 3 steps back, and therefore they're going to highly limit themselves. They're just going to have certain things that they do because there's just no failure involved. There's no limit understanding involved. But if you free that up and you're, oh, wow, that limit was pretty close. Or this one, wow, I had no idea how far I could take that one. But now I know that's where I can go. And if I've got the gusto to do it again, I know exactly where to stop. An array of those things could be an array of failures, which sounds like having dozens and dozens and dozens of failures doesn't sound good. But having dozens of touch points of all your limits and various types of things, I think makes for a very, very sort of powerful individual.
I did want to get you to talk about something, and I'm not even sure how to frame this, because it's what bands and artists think that they're shooting for sometimes. When you actually ask them, it's very undefined. As you said, it's this undefined thing that might happen. Artists and bands not having a clear enough goal, like them defining, as opposed to thinking some magical unknown thing's going to happen and they're waiting for somebody else to come and rescue. This external force is going to come and magically happen to them, which rarely happens. I would like you to kind of speak about that, like how you address that with artists and bands, I guess expectations or goals.
My personal approach and my perspective of artists is that, yes, they need the other side of management, which is draw out of them, ask them those kind of questions, get more specific on what you want to do. I want to tour. Wait, what do you mean? You want to tour 300 shows a year, or you want to tour 10 shows a year? Do you want to tour? Like, what do you want to do exactly? How much do you want to be away from home? How much do you want to be in a studio versus playing in front of people? And I think if you can answer those questions, you can design a career for that. You can design a career that gives you that. If you're shooting for something that everyone else is shooting for, and you don't even know if you want it, the chances are, A, you're not going to get it. And even if you get it, you're going to fuck it up. But if you think about exactly what you want to get out of this thing, and then design a team and a set of expectations and your skill set to get that thing, I think it's fully achievable now.
I think one of the biggest mistakes artists make is trying to appeal to everybody. I think most artists think when they think like, oh, I got to build a fan base, they're thinking they need 10 million people. They're thinking this really big scale that first off, they're probably not going to be able to achieve realistically. Fan base, that's at the core of having a career is a fan base. So what is a fan base? How does an artist, I guess there's two ways of looking at it. You can either create a fan base or find a fan base. And I'd just like you to talk about in general the idea of building fans or having a fan base.
Cool. I like that framing, build a fan base or find a fan base. To me, when you said that, that implies something that's important. Which is there are these existing scenes of people who are into music, and that's an interesting idea. I hadn't thought about it specifically that way, but that is a way to sort of find an audience. A lot of artists who I get to talk to, if I feel like I'm having if we're starting to get into a conversation about like what they're up to and challenges they're having, I try to take that question to the highest level, which is what is it that you do and who cares? What is it you do is your art. Who cares is your fan base. If you can't get real specific on what it is that you do better than anyone else in the world, because there's something that everyone does that's better than anyone else in the world. So ideally you find that thing. And then who cares? Who cares about that thing? What is it that I do? I sing. Shit, a lot of people sing. What is it that you do? I sing 4 octaves. Okay, that's a number. How many people care about that? Okay, what is it that you do? And who cares? And I feel like that's the fan side of it is like, man, you really got to think about the options that people have. And if you aren't giving them something and tying into your authenticity, comment, if you're not giving them something that's worth their time, if you're not giving something that they can care about.
I think the real key point you made is make them care. If you don't make people care about your career or you as a person, it's got to seem important. Like your music, your message, something has to seem important about what you're doing. Even if it's just as simple like, hey, she's got great boobs. Well, those damn boobs are really important, just make something out of it. Or it's maybe the message of your songs or the story. It's not just your music, but maybe the story of your journey. But there has to be something important in there somehow, right?
If you have something that's really, really important, but it's only really important to 1,000 or 5,000 or 10,000 people, not millions, do the math. That'll work too. People, because they think that they need to broaden themselves, they need to popularize themselves, they need to produce themselves into sounding something that other people are going to like, rather than if you can get a core audience of people to give a real shit about what you're doing, the opportunity to make a living off of them. And that's where like, even just touring, mid-sized touring bands who I work with, there's this just like belief that they have to be popular in all 50 states.
What's the smallest number of fans, diehard fans are going to stick with you? What is that number? Like how many would you need that are going to spend how many dollars a year for you to not have a damn job?
Let's do the math. So say like a diehard fan, you're like, all right, I'm a diehard fan. So to me, that equals spending $10 per month on that band. Now I'm not going to do this for 100 bands. I'm not going to do it for 20 bands. Maybe I'll do it for like 5 bands. There's mine. So $10 a month. So $10 a month times 12 months. So it's $120 a year per fan. So let's do that times 100 fans. So 12 grand to have 100 fans, 12 grand per year. So say you do that in 10 markets. It's $120,000. So you have 10 markets where you have 100 fans and you get them, and that's it. And you're like, that's the goal. You're grossing $120,000 a year. That's 10 places. So are there 10 places that are a day's drive from your home where you can get 100 people? And you go, what do they get for that $10 a month? Well, you're going to come visit them twice a year and play for them. So they get 2 shows a year for their $120. Okay. You're also going to give them access to all of the music you create. So they've got, private SoundCloud page or something. They get all the music and videos. You can build it. You can build it on Patreon for that matter. There's the platforms exist for it, but people don't think about those numbers. They're thinking they're too caught up in this vast goal that is not likely to be achieved, that they don't start building actual sustainable business to what they're doing. Figure out your 10 markets right now and figure out if you've got at least 10 people there. Because if you got 10, all you have to do is get it from 10 to 100. You're making 120 grand a year. So that's where you put a song out on Spotify, you get that information about where they're listening. You know where the fans are. You don't have to be too mysterious about it.
If you had one piece of advice to give a band or an artist starting out with their career, what would it be?
Consider quitting. Meaning that if me saying that at all influences your opinion about whether you should do it, you should not do it.
When I was younger, every single person I talked to always tried to talk me out of it. And it would piss me the fuck off. I just wanted some advice. Maybe that's what they were doing, right? Because it didn't work.
Yeah.
But I wanted some damn advice.
Basically yes, if there's something else you're considering doing, if this doesn't work out, go do that right now. Only do this if you can't do anything else. And definitely, if that's the case, then do the fuck out of it. Do it and learn it. Learn you doing it. But kind of wanting to do it and not being sure, thinking about going back to grad school. I don't know. Good luck, so yes, if my discouraging words are at all discouraging, then you shouldn't be doing it.
Being that this show is called Freaking Out with Billy Hume, then I've got these episodes called rants. I just wanted to ask you, what's your rant?
What's my rant?
Yeah, what, you got a rant for today or a general rant?
Man. Not really. I'm not feeling too ranty. I'm feeling pretty inspired. My rant, Billy Hume, what really freaks me out is it's just not an optimal time to think in a binary way. This is a time to think about the rainbow of different ways that this could turn out. And there's a lot of binary of, are we open or are we closed? Are we doing this or are we not? Are we ramping up or ramping down? And it's like, well, if you go out in public and smash your face up against other people, then it's going to be pretty binary about whether going out's a good call or not. But, I think there's just a much more interesting opportunity for us to reset our personal relationships and reset the value of live experiences, whether they're musical experiences or theater experiences. And I just really hear a lot of rhetoric around a binary approach to something that is a way more interesting thing happening right now. So thank you for letting me get it off my chest.
Appreciate you participating in my on my YouTube podcast thing. And at some point I might follow up with you on a couple questions, but I got plenty here, man. I really appreciate you helping out.
Yeah, I always love talking to you. So good luck with it and keep me posted if there's anything else I can do.
Will do. Thanks a lot.
Yeah, talk soon, man.
See ya.
See ya.